had an experience where I was trying to put my mind on a very painful feeling I had here, and it went on for a number of days, and at one point my jaw kind of fell away and the flesh fell off and things like that, and that was quite a distressing experience. And I didn't go and speak to Pañña about it, because just said be mindful of it.
That's all right.
It was quite an unnerving experience.
Yeah. One shouldn't be frightened of those things. These things can occur. I mean, some people can see their own body and the whole thing will disintegrate. But these things are to learn from. And one should look on them as teachers, things to teach one the nature of the body. If one finds it unnerving, one has to realize it's because it's shaking a fundamentally fixed view we have of our own body. And one should use that as something to realize the nature of the body, how it's not here forever. We're not immortal. It's very important. What were your questions? About the meditation?
How do you know that you are really seeking the right way, the true way in meditation?
In meditation? At first in meditation one's not really seeking the truth. First what one's doing is developing faculties which will enable one to search for the truth. It's rather like somebody who's going to go into a boxing match, prize fight. They have to do a lot of training, but the training isn't the prize fight. They don't gain any medals for the training, and they don't get what they're after in the training, but the training is absolutely essential for the fight. And much in the same way, we have to train ourselves in various faculties to develop the mind, because the mind is capable of penetrating the cloud of ignorance which we have.
And how do you define those faculties?
Control of mind, fundamentally, and this means control of thoughts. That is the big one, the control of thoughts. Also the keeping of the mind in the present, what we call mindfulness. Keeping it in the present and keeping it here as much of the time as we can. The cutting off of wayward thoughts particularly. Generally speaking, we get thoughts coming up and we know we should cut them off, but it seems terribly important to us at that moment that thought should go on. This is what we call the kilesas. And these we have to realize, have to fight against, have to chop them off and learn to keep our mind under control. Because if one tries to develop wisdom, one has to investigate. When one investigates, one has to keep one's mind on the investigation. Even though there is a tendency to find it uninteresting or tedious, or there's something much more exciting that we could be doing. And the reason for the mind control is so that we can keep the mind on that thing that we've decided to do, regardless. Because only by keeping it on can one then penetrate deeper and deeper into it. So at first one's really developing the faculty of mind control. And the first thing one really has to do is to try and learn to stop thoughts, at least for one's meditation practice. This is very difficult. It's not easy at all. Buddha said that the mind's like a great elephant, and you have to hold it in. You have to restrain it and control it until it gives way and becomes tame. And
that goes for words and images.
Words are the first, the most important, because they whirl around all the time, and they're what keep it going. They're the flywheel, which keeps the thing going all the time. The images become important later on. And when the images start coming up, then one's mind is becoming much more concentrated. And the images one has to learn to look at and not to cling to. You can't deal with it in the same way as words. One has to not let one's interest go into them, but just to see them as forms, colours, that's it. And let go of them. That's the way of meditation. The meditation for calm, as we call it, or for samadhi, is the first thing, the control of mind. What it does, if one gets success in it, what they call the chitta, you know, chitta and then chitta, yeah. The chitta becomes absolutely firm inside, unshakable, it's unmoving, still. And there is the experience then of being well integrated, well centered, as though one knows everything that's around one, because one knows this where everything comes into. And when one is like that, one has this sort of fixity, then one knows that the mind can be turned anywhere. There's a list of factors, I'm not sure I can remember them all. The mind has to be pliable, adaptable, upright. I forget the others now, there's 6 altogether. But there are factors which come with samadhi. The samadhi brings these factors. The pliability is very important. Fit for work, that's another one. Able to work. When the mind is like that, then one can turn it to investigate, first of all, this body. What is it? What's its nature? Secondly then, the factors of mind. Factors which make up the mind. The idea of the investigation is to see that these things are not mine, they don't belong to me, they're foreign. And one is then cutting away all those things which aren't me, and so to speak, seeing that these I needn't bother about. And you have to get down to the central question of, okay, what is me? That's the direction of meditation practice. As the techniques of meditation practice, the best one, the most suitable one, which I've been doing, is the one on breathing practice. In Buddhism, the breathing practice is not a yoga practice, it's not yoga breathing. It's not forced, it's not an exercise. We merely use the breath as a convenient object to pin the attention. The whole thing is pinning the mind, the attention, keeping one's attention fixed. And you pin it to the feeling of the breath, usually about the tip of the nose or somewhere around here. But wherever one feels the breath most strongly, that is the place to go to. And one keeps one's attention on that, and tries to keep it on that, knowing the breath going in, out, like that, without it wandering. If one does this for a long time, the mind doesn't wander, you find that the mind becomes more interested in it. It starts to become interesting. And it can become almost fascinating. You find a point coming up somewhere, a point of concentration. You can't say where it is necessarily. There may be light comes up, but that doesn't happen with everyone by any means. And one goes on until this gets strong, and one can follow it and hold that point of concentration all the time. If one can keep at it long enough, it'll migrate to the heart. And then one will have an experience of happiness that one's never known before. Because at that point the mind has lost all contact with everything external. Everything external is gone. It's just left entirely on its own. And what it's left with is knowing. It knows. And that's the state of samadhi. Samadhi. If one can, one should go on doing this many times until one can get it easily. Then one's mind will be well trained. But one still then has to turn and do the wisdom practice, and then has to develop thought, investigating, examining, which is quite different. And there is a tendency when one gets that samadhi to kind of wallow in it. Because one thinks it's extremely pleasant, one feels no troubles at all one's anxieties, worries and everything just all gone. But the trouble is that it doesn't bring one to anything final. One comes away from that state and there one is, just the same person. Not different. So one's got to use the wisdom to go deep and to get rid of those things which are our problem internally. Now this is very important. Otherwise people get caught with samadhi. Wonderful state, but there it is. Doesn't do anything. Many have been caught in that. Because one thinks this must be enlightenment. So a feeling that, I've got there at last. And in fact one hasn't. In fact one's really quite a long way from it.
Because somebody is full of feeling, concentration on the feeling rather than sort of discovering the truth.
Yes, it's not actually finding out any truth, but it is giving one a lot of data, because one's getting into new states of mind one hasn't been in before, and this teaches one a lot about the scope of the mind. And also by doing that, if one is clever and one doesn't get caught in it, one can realize how many people have got caught in that. How many people have assumed that, for instance, that is God, or something of that sort. And really they've got the wrong thing.
How do they know where to go?
How do they?
After that?
Well, if after that, if one can get to that state, then one has to examine. Use one's wisdom, what wisdom one has to examine, to find out whether in fact one has overcome one's suffering or not. Whether one still has discontent. Whether one really finds that this is what one's after. And if one's truthful with oneself, one will have to admit that it isn't. One then has to go on to find out where the real problem is, which is in the kilesas. But it's not easy doing it, very hard. Always difficult. And Ajahn has said that, Ajahn, the teacher, has said that he's found that it doesn't get easier. It's difficult right the way through. Every step is difficult. The steps one's already gone through, of course, become easy. But then one's faced up with something difficult again. More difficult the next step. Reasoned analysis is very important. To use reason. To assess what is the purpose. You must see that the fundamental purpose is to overcome discontent. Because if one has still got discontent, it means that which is essential in oneself hasn't really been uncovered as it should be. So we must assess, have I still got discontent? Where is the discontent? In what way has it come about? And the analysis of where the discontent is, or suffering, if we like to call it, that's very important to understand. And this will often show one the way one should go. But to know the way, if one has enough wisdom, one can see it for oneself. Not always. Sometimes one makes mistakes. If one is fortunate enough, one has a good teacher, and the teacher can point the way. It's very important. The teacher is very valuable indeed. Otherwise, one has to try things, if one's not sure, and see what the results are. If the results are good and seem to be right, do them. Otherwise not. But I would say be very cautious about letting go and letting things come. There are different ways of doing this. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. Because we have those kilesas, and the kilesas will step in if they can, and they'll lead one in the wrong direction every time. So one needs to be cautious about that. Often one just doesn't know what's the right thing to do. Then one has to try and work it out if one can, or go to the books, see what the books say. Try and get some hint from them. Usually after a while one finds something which points the direction one should go. Sometimes it doesn't matter. In general, one can say, though, that anything that leads inwardly, it tends to be right. Things which lead outwardly into the world tend to be wrong. It's a rough guide, but it won't answer every situation by any means. We can say roughly the things that are important are moral behaviour, of course, mindfulness, wisdom, and effort. The effort to do the practice, the effort to get rid of those things which are unwholesome in us, the effort to promote those that are wholesome. This is what we should do. These are the basic things. But there are three things: the mindfulness, the wisdom, and the effort. And if one has enough mindfulness, samadhi is easy.
You said before that investigation of the body and the breaking up is a natural progression before the mind, and also that you develop the tools of concentration and mindfulness before you investigate in vipassana style.
Yeah.
But in fact it seems that those two things can be pretty mingled. You might think you're trying to develop samadhi, but in fact you present with opportunities to investigate the breaking up of the body as you go along.
Yes, one mustn't think that one does everything in order or in accordance with the way the book is written down. It isn't like that. Because the kilesas within us are not in an orderly fashion, they're all jumbled up. And things come up here and there, higgledy-piggledy, come up all over the place. Because of that, there are times when we have to use morality to overcome a problem, times when we have to use samadhi, times when we have to use wisdom. But what we can say is, generally speaking, our effort should be aimed at developing the samadhi, control of mind first, and wisdom second. But if an opportunity comes up and it's right to use wisdom there, then certainly one should use it. It's not the way of what we call kammatthana, the way of developing meditation. It's not a cut and dried process at all. And each person has got to find their own way, fundamentally. And they've got to be resourceful. They've got to be, to some extent, inventive. If they're up against something, they can't find some way out, they've got to invent one. Quite often like that. You can't just go by what the books say at all. The books are the bare bones. We have to cover them. And chitta is very important to try and understand it. It's difficult to understand, difficult to know what it is. Because there's nothing, you can't sort of look at it like you can do an ordinary object. You can't see it. But it's there, and it's that which is real within us, or it can be real. It's the centre. It's the one who knows within us. Because we have some strange faculties. It's popular nowadays for people to think that eventually computers will be able to practically do everything human beings can. But it's nonsense. Because they don't work in the same way. They work in quite different ways. And a computer may be able to do all the thinking and so on, but it can't know. It hasn't got the faculty of knowing. Because knowing is not a mechanical function, it's something inherent in the chitta. And it's difficult to say even what it is. We know, but we can't say.
And it is hard to know the chitta. It is hard to see.
It's hard to realize it. Realize it, yes. We know it, but we know it just instinctively. But we don't realize it. Because we always try to think about things, we always try to think about things. It's always about.
What about dreams?
Dreams would appear to be, well, there seem to be various types of dreams, but the normal dreams, I would say, are probably feelings within the body of one sort or another, and there are mental interpretations to explain these feelings to us satisfactorily. And in order to explain the feelings, it picks out anything from them, puts them together.
That's the ordinary
Yes.
Doing the other kind of anything unexpected and leisure.
Yes, there are times when the dream can in fact go into a samadhi state. This can happen. But most people it does occasionally, very occasionally. It's not usual. But it is possible.
How do you define samadhi?
Calm. Happiness. There's really three types of samadhi. Kanika samadhi, upachara and apana. Kanika samadhi is when it just comes up with a momentary thing. When one gets this state of stillness and one-pointedness coming up just for a moment, then it goes away. It's not very strong. The upachara samadhi is when the mind becomes absorbed in the meditation, and in that state you can get all sorts of things coming up like nimittas, we call them, like dream images, visions. Sometimes good things, sometimes bad things, sometimes frightening things too.
Excuse me, is rapture included in this there?
With
Rapture.
piti will be, piti is rap, if one, you're translating that as piti, is it?
Feelings from the body is like light.
Lightness, yes, they're forms of piti. Yes, they can come up, yes. But upachara samadhi is a state which, if frightening things do come up, one should be careful. Don't pull away from it, because they can be dangerous. If one's timid, if one's nature is timid, one will be frightened. If one's easily frightened by things, it's better not to deal with them. Not till one's got a lot of skill anyway. The final state, which is when the mind goes very deep, is apana samadhi, and there it goes into one point and the body's disappeared, the world's disappeared. That state is quite safe. If one can get to that, that's the one to get to. Because the mind coming out of that state is very, very cool, very calm, very alert, and very capable of doing work.